This is your Bentonville housing market update for May 2026. If you're thinking about buying here, whether you're relocating for a new job or buying your very first house, this is a video where I walk you through about what's actually happening in the market. Plain English, no hype, no pressure, just an honest read on the numbers. Let's get to it. Here's the plan for the next few minutes. First, where the market stands right now. Is it favoring sellers, buyers, or somewhere in between? Then, what's happening with prices? And what a typical home actually costs you per month at today's rates. After that, your choices, how much is for sale, and how much room you have to breathe. And finally, what all of it means, specifically whether you're relocating, buying your first home, or thinking about selling. You don't need a notepad. I'll put out the key numbers on the screen, and near the end, there's one slide that's worth screenshotting. Now, a quick word about me before we get into the data. First, I'm a father of 4 great children. I have 2 twin girls and 2 young boys. Next, I'm a Northwest Arkansas realtor, and I built this monthly update for 2 particular kinds of people. One, those who are buying their first house from a renting stance or just from out of college. 2, those who are relocating here for a brand new role, maybe at Walmart, maybe at Tyson's, who knows. My job is simple: explain the market in plain language to give you an honest read about what those numbers actually say, including what they don't tell us, and help you move at your own pace. So, big picture, where does the market stand? Bentonville is still a seller's market, but it's the most balanced it's been in a while. What this means in practice is that homes are still holding their value and selling close to asking, but there's a lot more for sale than there were a year ago, which means buyers have more options to choose from and a little bit more room to negotiate. So sellers have the edge slightly, but just less than what they had last year. And if you're a buyer, you've got more options right now than you've had in 12 months. That shift is really the theme for this whole update. Let's put 4 numbers on the board. 1, the typical home around here is around $490,000. And that's been about flat over the past year. We'll come back to why that matters. 2, homes are selling at about 98% of asking. On a typical home, that's roughly $8,000 to $9,000 under, but I want to be clear, that's an average across the market, not a promise on any particular house. 3, it's taking about 46 days for a home to go under contract. And 4, there's about 4.5 months supply of housing left. Quick note on the last one, and I'll explain in a second. That is a measure of pace, not a pile of extra homes sitting around. Now, prices. And this is where you have to be careful because any single month can be a bit noisy. So let's take a look at the full year. Over the past 12 months, the typical home value is essentially flat, up about 1/10 or so of a percent. The typical sale price, however, is down a couple of percent, and asking prices are down about 10% year over year, which tells me sellers are pricing more realistically than they were beforehand. But step back 2 and 3 years ago, values are still up double digits. So here's an honest read. Prices in Bentonville have leveled off after years of big gains, not crashing, not spiking, leveling. And for a buyer, that's a calmer market to step into. Now let's talk about what that actually costs per month, because that's the number that matters. As of early June 2026, the 30-year fixed rate is running in the mid 6% range, call it 6.5%. A year ago, it was closer to 6.85%, so rates have eased a little, which helps you as a buyer. Take that typical Bentonville home that costs maybe around $471,000, put 10% down, and you're financing about $424,000 on that loan at 6.5%. Your principal and interest, therefore, would land around $2,700 a month. Now, 2 home caveats. 1, property taxes, home insurance, and any HOA fees that are on top of that. And this is the estimate to help you plan as a buyer. It's not a quote, not a pre-approval, and it's not even financial advice. Now here's the inventory picture, and this is the good news. If you're buying, remember that 4.5 months of supply that I mentioned earlier ago. Here is what actually it means in today's selling pace. It would take about 4.5 months to sell every home currently on the market. It is not an X% of more homes. It is a measure of how fast things are moving. A year ago, that number was much tighter, meaning homes flew off the market. Today, it's a bit loose, more looser, if you can say that. You can see it in the chart. The navy bars are homes for sale each month. The gold bars are homes that sold. The for sale side has been climbing, hitting about 507 active listings in April, which is the most in over a year. More choices, more time also to make a good decision. So if there's more for sale, what's actually selling versus just sitting? Here's the tell. Homes that sold went for about $471,000. What's still sitting on the market is asking around $519,000. That gap is roughly $48,000. It's the difference between pricing to the market and overpricing. Priced right, homes move. Priced on hope, they sit. A quick gut check when you tour a house, the typical sale works out to about $233 a square foot. So you can sanity check whether homes priced near the going rate. And for anyone wondering whether to wait for a crash to scoop up deals, there's just 7 distressed filings for this period. Foreclosures are very rare. They don't support waiting. Please don't do that. So let's picture the typical Bentonville home so the numbers feel real. You're looking at roughly a $471,000 home, around 2,000 square feet, at about $233 a square foot. Where does that sit in the range? The core of this market runs from about $300,000 to $800,000. Plenty sells below $400,000, often newer construction, which is great for first-time home buyers. And there's plenty of sales above $800,000 for larger or custom homes. So that typical number isn't a ceiling or a floor. It's just the middle of a pretty wide range. Wherever your budget lands, there's almost certainly something in it and can help you figure out exactly where you fit. Now, why do people keep moving here? A few things are happening kind of right now around Bentonville. First, Walmart's new home office is open, a 350-acre campus, around 15,000 employees, street front shops, trails connecting it to downtown. That's a huge, steady job base that anchors demand and shapes where people want to live. Second, Crystal Bridges. They are opening a major expansion this year, about 50% larger. And if you've been there beforehand, you know it's going to be a very good size when they get it finished. That kind of amenity keeps people coming here to Northwest Arkansas. Third, healthcare is growing fast. The Alice L. Walton School of Medicine is first class, and there's a new health campus near I-49. And fourth, the trails. The 40-mile Razorback Greenway and the Ozark Trail System, the OZ Trail System, minutes on the trail is a real selling point to a listing. If you're relocating to Bentonville, here's how I'd approach it. Start with 2 things, school and commute. We map your school zone and your drive to work. Then we search it inside the overlap, not the whole metro. That alone can save you weeks of time. Second, you don't have to fly in blind. I do narrated virtual walkthroughs so you can honestly vet the home before you even book a trip. I'll show you what the listing photos don't. And third, you got room to be choosy. In April, about 4 homes were listed for every 1 that sold. That's more options than there were a year ago, so you're not forced to settle or rush. Take the time, get it right. Now, if you're buying your first home, listen up, because there's more help out there than most people realize. Arkansas has a few programs worth mentioning and knowing by name. 1, the ADFA Start Smart. It's a competitive 30-year fixed-rate loan for eligible buyers. Down payment assistance. DPA. It helps you with the down payment and closing costs. And number 3, the Arkansas Dream Down Payment Initiative, ADDI or ADDI, offers extra down payment help for income-eligible buyers. A couple of these can bring that 10% down payment way down. Keep your gut check in mind, about $233 a square foot, and remember that there's about 4.5 months of supply of housing inventory available. You're not forced to rush an offer. I can walk you through which programs you might qualify for. No pressure, just options. So a quick word for sellers, and this is just general market education, not a sales pitch, because every home and every street is different. 3 things. 1, price to what's actually selling. Aim at that $471,000 typical sale, around $233 a foot, not last year's peak asking prices. Of course, that would largely depend on the subdivision, on what's being sold in that particular area. Your agent should be able to help you out with that. I just want you to be mindful about what's currently selling at this day and age. 2, expect more competition. There are about 507 active listings in April alone, the most in over a year. So condition and presentation matter a lot. First impressions more than they used to. And 3, the first 2 or 3 weeks are everything. Homes priced right went under contract in about 46 days. The overpriced homes are the ones usually sitting up around $519,000 or more. Price it correctly out of the gate and the market will reward you. Okay, so this is a slide to screenshot. For buyers, about 4.5 months of supply means that you have time and choice. You don't have to rush. Homes sell around 90% of asking, so on average, there is a little room to negotiate. And at roughly 6.5%, you're looking to about $2,600 a month in principal and interest on the typical home. Don't forget there are taxes. Don't forget about any HOA fees that might occur on your property. But for sellers, price to the sold number, not to the peak market. Expect more competition than last year, and watch out for those first 2 or 3 weeks. So what do you actually need to do next? 3 things. First, get clear on your numbers. And I mean the monthly payment that you're genuinely comfortable with, not just a maximum a lender would approve you for. Those are 2 very different numbers. Second, map out your must-haves. School zone, the commute, anything that you need to have a good, strong, healthy life here. Second, map out your must-haves, the school zone, the commute, the space you need, and the price band, the range that you really fits. And third, have an honest agent in your corner, someone who will read the numbers straight and never manufacture urgency to push you. If you feel pushed, back away. Go to someone else. And when you do those 3 things, and you will be already ahead of most buyers or sellers out there. Well, that's your Bentonville market update for May 2026. Quick note on the data. The market figures come from the Realtors Property Resource, RPR. Those estimated values are not model-based, not appraisals, and nothing here is guaranteed. And so this video is just general information, not legal or financial advice. If you got questions about your specific situation, relocating, first-time home buyers, or you're just curious about what your place might be worth, reach out to me. Call or text me at 479-408-7995. Email me or find me on myozarkheritage.kw.com. If this helped, subscribe so you can catch next month's update. I'm Gregory Melvin, Find Your Roots in the Ozarks. I'll see you next month.